There we go.
The way it's going to work today is I'm going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes showing you things that are in this book, but I don't want to bore you with Italian stuff, you know, but I want to point out what you could do if you did something like this. The book took me about 7 months. It has 300 pages in it, 500 pictures and documents. Most of the documents and pictures were taken by my cell phone and then put in the book. It's a pretty simple process to do that. I think we'll show you that at the end with some things we've done. This is the lady sitting over there in the corner with the mask on. This is her grandson, a picture of him. But that's my desktop, so he's my grandson too. But anyway, so what I'm gonna do is go through a few things in here. Then I'm gonna back up and show you how I put that stuff in the book. I've been accumulating stuff in Butte since I don't even know. We moved back here in 1972, in 1970. So, and the reason I have this here, this is one of the first things that I ever came across. This is the map of Meaderville that was used by the Anaconda Company to buy out Meaderville. And when you start collecting history stuff, this says November 1944. And a cousin of mine, Jerry Butte, had that and he gave it to me. So it's a collector's item for sure, but it goes back to show you how much. Over on that table over there, I put a few things on how I organize things, and I'll talk about that later. So, you know, this has been a lifelong project. And the reason I did it is that when I'm gone, this is all going to go away. I mean, I could give it to one of our 4 sons, heavens knows what it would happen to it. And so this is, I guess I can get started, Kim, with,
Yeah.
what do you want me to do, this up here or down
Nope,
there?
down on the bottom, the blue tab.
I mean, I'm working in a very small area here.
One more over. There you go. The one on the left is the first one.
I'm not going to like this at all.
Now you're moving them.
No.
Not that one. Do you want me to come open it for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew this was going to be a problem because there's too much stuff up there. I taught computers up at Tech for 30 years. You think I know how to do that one of these down here? There we go.
Wait, why is it Dropbox? I didn't put Dropbox over there.
You want to put that one on?
Yeah, we're gonna put that one on.
No, not that one.
Not that one.
That's later.
See?
Bear with us.
See?
Okay.
I put it. It's this one, right?
Yeah, right down.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, the next one, you do the orange and then the green, and that'll be good.
This, what you see up there is the book on a flash drive. So when I send it out to people, it costs, those 300, if you send that out, it costs you about 20 bucks. And if people are familiar with computers, they would rather do what they'd rather have this. And this only costs you like $3 for the flash drive and a couple of bucks to send it to them. So anyway, and I'm going to just page through this thing, hopefully. What am I doing here? There we go.
There you go.
Okay, so this is the first page, and I'm going to go through about 10 or 15 pages of the book. It'll be like you sitting at the table just looking through it now. And you notice the thing here, this book is family. It tells you English is my second language, raised in an Italian-Croatian neighborhood. You know, I was born and raised in McQueen, so anyway. In the book, this basically summarizes the whole book. And this is what I did. So you can see, this is me and Margie. Where's my little pin thing?
Pointer.
Right here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd rather point with this. So this is Margie and I. A lot of people ask, well, who's she with, you know? This is Margie's side of the family. This is my side of the family. And these are our 4 sons. The book goes through everything you see on this screen. And basically, so we go to her side of the family, and then I go up one more generation to the grandparents, same on this side, and then we go one more generation down to our grandchildren, and that's the 5 generations. Okay? Now here's a thing on, when I started doing the book, I had no idea. I'd never written a book and didn't know what to do. And eventually it ended up like this, in 11 chapters, and it goes to show you Margie's side is right in here. This is my side with the Bunis and the Georges and everything else. And down here, and this is more recent, but basically I went through our early married years, our kids going to school and stuff like that, you know. So you wouldn't want to see that too much. That's boring. So I'm just going to show you some of the things that I did to, so I have maps in there showing where my family came from in Italy. This is my father's house in Italy. It's in northern Italy. This is my grandmother's house, who was a Buni. It's also, and there were 2 villages apart. But again, this goes to show you some of the things you can do with a little bit of automation. You know what I mean? And I'll show you how I did that with the cell phone and with a package called Microsoft Publisher. This is the family in Italy that I communicate with pretty regularly. For those of you that know a little bit about our family, this is my sister Elaine, who's deceased now, and her husband. They were visiting there. Margie and I have visited there several times. This is a chapel that was dedicated to my sister. This is a reunion when we went back, and there was 120 Michelottis there, God forbid. I did things like this. My grandmother came here in 1902, and I wanted to illustrate what that was like for somebody to come to the United States. And basically, she came 6,675 miles, took 3 weeks. She rode by horse. She traveled by boat. She traveled by train, and she traveled by stagecoach. And it wasn't, and she had a 2-year-old with her. So, a little bit of that to give you a history. This is I'm sorry it's turned like that, just the way the book is, of some of her brothers that came with her, and it shows you when they came and everything else. Just to illustrate what it was like getting here. So, this is the manifesto of the boat she was on. You know, it's a list of everybody that was on the boat with her. Things like that, documents that I had accumulated over time. This is her passport, you know. So I took all these documents and took pictures of them and put it in like that, using my cell phone. Okay. So go on, you know, you can see there's lots of stuff. And I hope stop me if I'm going too fast. So here's a picture of my dad and mom with my grandfather and grandmother back in Meaderville. My grandmother was a Buni, and my mother was a Barsanti, a George, and this is my grandfather and my dad. And that was taken on Copper Street in Meaderville. for those of you that have any exposure. I could show you where Copper Street is here. It's, I don't want to go through that. Too much information, huh? This is their marriage certificate, and it's over there on that table over there. Like I say, you know, if you do something like this, you have to accumulate a lot of stuff and organize it. And that's the biggest part of this whole job. This is some more stuff. That was my grandmother, you know, and this is Meaderville. This is a picture of Meaderville, and some of you will recognize it. You know, there's the Franklin Holy Savior School. This is the church that's up at the Mining Museum, St. Helena's, you know. So a lot of this maybe will mean something to you. Again, here's St. Helena's. More pictures of Meaderville, Rocky Mountain Cafe. Now, this is something I put in there because my dad learned to be a butcher at Hanson Packing. And then he opened his neighborhood grocery store. And what I used, and I will reference this at times, the next slide is, this is a book that Sonny Murich put together about Hanson Packing. And I took that right out of this book. You know, and since I'm not publishing the book, I don't have to get his permission, although I asked him, and he was glad to do it. But it talks about Hanson Packing and all the butchers they trained. More about Meaderville. Okay. There's a picture of my dad. And Pipestone, I take anybody who wants to. We can take the Springs bus to Pipestone if you want. Nobody will go with me anymore. But,
Field trip.
yeah, these are things that I put in there so that, and this is Pipestone currently, but this is my dad's track team that won the state in Pipestone, and as it tells you, you know, this is the kind of history you include, though, if you're passing it on to your relatives. And in fact, the museum in Pipestone didn't have these pictures. I don't know where I got them, but I ended up putting in, I don't know if you've ever been in the museum in Whitehall over there. Someday when you have time, you should go. It's really nice. And here's Pipestone today. How many of you are familiar with Pipestone? So you know, you can see the plunge. It's still there. And then this picture isn't that good, but there's a bunch of cabins down here that are sunk into the ground. Okay. Then my, you know, I included obituaries for everybody that was my relatives. My grandmother was a matriarch. You can tell these are older pictures. Again, tell me is this bothering your eyes or anything the way I'm going? It's like thumbing through the book that was in front of you, but we're electronically doing it. Some of you may have seen this book. Joan Filppula wrote this book on Elk Park and Woodville and Trask, excuse me. This is that book, and I reference that because she went through the Butte clan, which is huge. My grandmother had 9 brothers and 2 sisters, and that's the Butte clan. So I'm related to probably everybody in this room. But this is taken out of that book. Just took a cell phone picture of it, mailed it to myself, and put it in this book. I keep saying that's easy. It is easy, but it's work. This is one of my grandfather's brothers. Now this book here, or this picture is, I like to show because I love arrows, you know. But I have this picture, and for those of you that may not be familiar with it, McQueen, Meaderville. But with these arrows, I was able to show where all my relatives lived in McQueen, what it was like to live in a neighborhood. You know, my two grandmothers, we lived right up there in the corner. Then my two grandmothers were less than a block away, and my aunts were a little bit close. The school was just down the street. Here's St. Helena's again. And that was my reason for throwing this into the book, to show you what a neighborhood was like. My grandmother wrote letters back to Italy once a month. And if you could read that, it's all in Italian. And I have those. So this is showing that, you know, there was some communications going back and forth. She,
How did you get those translated?
I haven't. We're still working on, no, I shouldn't say we haven't. Did I see Alana? Did she come in? There she is. Alana has a, how did you do that? We did it, I had her, I called her one day and I said, I'm trying to figure out what my grandmother said. And you sent it to who?
My cousin in Hawaii, she translated it.
Yeah. And just as a side note, you know, at the archives here, we have all the minutes of the Christoforo Columbus Lodge, going back to the late 1800s. They're all in Italian. So, Italians, but anyway, you can see that she lived on Leatherwood, and I'm not sure what she was saying at this point. She'd send pictures back to Italy. This is the Butte Ranch up in Elk Park. And I included a little bit about that because that was important. Maybe some of you knew my Aunt Mary. She taught for many years, and she was sort of another matriarch in our family. What I have underlined there, you can't tell, but she said she didn't have much money, but I gave of myself. And that's the kind of woman she was. Another picture. This is me when I was, let me see, right there. There's a little boy right there. I was about 6 years old going to a game, and my best friend is sitting right behind us. You know, again, I'm just trying to give to the people we pass this on to. What did I do?
Was that in Clark's Park?
Yeah, that was in the Clark's Park, right? The bleachers there. Death certificates included. This is my mother's family, and that's my mother is this gal right here, and my grandmother and grandfather. If anybody knows Joey the butcher, the barber, and then this guy is a guy named Lugo Petroni, and I don't know why my mother has her arm around this guy, but I never asked. But it's their family. Now, Linda, who is with us today from Missoula, asked me about this picture, and the reason she's sitting right there, Linda Perisic, and her mother is in this picture. This is my mother here. And this is her.
Well, my mother isn't in the picture yet, but my Aunt Louise and Uncle Gus are
Okay.
two children.
And this is my grandmother on my mother's side. And anyway, that's how we're related. I spent years trying to figure out what's going on in this picture because it just didn't make any sense. And the thing that always confused me, and I'm anal. Don't ask her, but I'm anal. Notice this woman here is holding this little girl's hand. And it always baffled me. Well, as it turns out, this is these two's wedding picture. And if I back this up a little bit, this gal is marrying her first husband's brother, who got killed in the mine. And I'll show you the things you sort of uncover when you do something like this. I'll go back. Let's see if I can, there it is. My mother's family is the Georges. They changed it. It was Giorgi in Italy, and it's George now. They changed it to Ellis Island. But notice this David Georgie and Angelo Georgie, Rosa Regattini, married to both of them. But what I uncovered was that this David died in 1918, and she came. I think he got killed. He died in the mines. She went back to Italy and married his brother, and that's the picture. And my point is, this is the kind of stuff you uncover when you start doing a genealogy. Like Linda asked me about that this morning, and I said, I'm going to talk about that. Come on, what did I do? Oh, there we go. And again, there's that picture. It just, Sonny O'Day, some of you have heard of Sonny O'Day. He's a boxer in Laurel. His real name was Charles George, but nobody would be afraid of him, named Charles George. A few more things just about the book. These are pictures from Meaderville. I want to get to Margie's stuff a little bit. Well, this is my mother and her sisters. But anyway, this is, now I'm getting into Margie's family. And the only reason, not the only reason, the main reason why I did what I did was that, thank you. The main reason was that Margie's relative did a book on their family and sent me a flash drive of that book. In fact, it was 240 pages long, and this is the book. I printed it out. And when I saw this, the wheels started turning. How did you do that? How do you do something like this? Well, I called them, and they told me it's not that hard, and they told me how they did it, and I've talked to them several times how they did it, and they were instrumental in me being able to do this, So that's why that's in there. Margie's family comes from Wisconsin, and I talked about that. But they were originally from, what's that say? I don't even know. Somewhere in Germany. Bockholz. And we've been there. I mean, it's very similar to what we found in Italy. They treated us like kings. And so this is taken right out of that book, though. That was the beauty. It looks like I did some work. I transferred it in about 20 seconds, and I got the whole chapter. And it's a detailed chapter. It's fascinating. Tell me who the senator was, Margie. He was your grandfather? Your dad's father. Her dad's father was a senator from South Dakota. Boy, I better get this straight, so I'm no dinner tonight. And this is all about that. But I mean, I did nothing but just transfer it in, because they had done all the work. And it looks like you're doing a lot, but you're really not. And that guy was the senator. He got killed in a horrible accident.
No, he died of the flu.
He died of the flu. That's not too bad.
1918.
Well, that was just as horrible.
No, but they had a coke wagon or something, and it blew up or something, and the baby was in there. But that's another whole story. So now this is Margie's mom and dad, and I wanted to show you this. This is Margie's father, who was a veteran, and this is stuff I added. But we have that uniform in our basement, and I just took the picture of the uniform and threw it in there as a collector's item. Like I say, thank God for cell phones. And this is his military papers and what he did in the military, which we have buried somewhere, but now is something that we can pass on through the book. You know what I mean? Margie's father was a businessman in Billings, and you know, there again, just some more details there. This is her mother's side, and pretty large family too. I think I figured out at one point, if you take all of our grandparents and their siblings, there's over 50. Because they were such huge families back in those days. How am I doing time-wise?
Just fine.
Okay, I only have a few more pictures to show you, because that up there, that's, once in a while this thing just doesn't want to go. Okay. This is Margie's grandma in her house in Wisconsin, you know, and she was real close to her grandma. We have a rocking chair in our, and more on her side. Then there's Margie's mom and dad in their wedding, and these are all things that we had, but they were in boxes and everything else, you know. Here's a tree, and we're on Margie's mother. Now, one of our sisters-in-law did this family tree, and I won't take credit for that, but it has every person in their family, a picture of them and their birth date. And this is done in Adobe, for those of you that have a little familiarity with. It's a fabulous. I have a copy of it over there that I have hung up on my wall. But for, you know how years you see family trees and they're not that. Now that's Margie. She'll probably not want. We met at Carroll. Now we're getting into recent history, and the way I put this together is, you know. These again are just taking pictures with your cell phone. And she went to Billings, this is her elementary pictures. She was a good tennis player, on and on. That's her house in Billings, it still exists. This is our house in McQueen, and it was moved down by St. Anne's. Just now this is more, this stuff, oh, there's a Holy Savior. You know, anyway, this is our high school and college stuff that would probably pass on to, you know, our grandkids and our great-grandkids. That's where we are in the history of this whole thing. Margie's sister was this is her family, and one of the things that I didn't do a very good job of, and I have that as a suggestion, is when you branch out like this and they're still alive, get them involved. They'll write for you and they'll give you pictures. And in some cases I did good on that, in other cases. And sometimes they don't want to be involved, you know, and that was a problem we had in some cases. This is the gal that, Margie's brother lives in Washington. Where am I going? Let's see. This is me and my family. And the reason I bring this up, and some of you may know this, but my other sister was killed in a horrible car accident on Thanksgiving Day in 1962. And those things have to be, these things have to be included in the history. I mean, it's sad, but you know, my kids asked me about that. This was on the front page of the Montana Standard. It was a horrible time in our lives. And so on. And this is more of my sisters. You know, how you organize this, I had no idea when I started how I would organize it. And as I did it, more of it fell into place. You know what I mean? And that's another thing you'll find out. A couple more that I want to show you. We lived in Seattle for a while. There's some pictures of the boys and all that. I got two more pictures, and then I'm going to change things. And this is all recent history. I mean, 1975 is pretty recent. This book covers 125 years.
Oh, wow.
It goes back into the late 1800s, and we're, you know, So, I hope I haven't missed it. We've always had dogs. This one lives at our house now. And our granddaughter who goes to Carroll left the dog with us. So you can include things like this with the dogs. Now, the reason I bring this up is I've talked about our boys, and this will be the last one I'll show you. These pictures are on our wall as you walk into our house. They're graduation pictures. They don't look like that now, for sure. But Margie put these together and everything else. But you can do this kind of stuff if you're using a computer, taking cell phones of the pictures and putting them on there. So I'm not going to bore you with our lives. That's the end of that. I want to show you what this looked like before I started doing the book. And that's where I'm going now. I hope I go okay like that.
Yep, down to the bottom, down to the orange P down in your,
Do I have to close that?
nope, you don't. You can just go down to your taskbar on the bottom.
I know it won't let me.
There it is.
And now over to there we go.
Okay,
All right, now click on
play.
Slideshow up at the top.
Is it over there? though?
You have review underlined. Go over to the left.
You know,
Higher,
this
higher, higher.
higher, yeah. I
Here.
should have Jim McCarthy up there.
Here.
Yeah, which one?
There you go.
Slideshow on the beginning. There we go.
Okay. Now, this is a little 5 or 10 minute thing I put together that shows you how I did it. Okay? And actually the a la Famiglia is my niece said you have to call it this. And you know what the 5 generations are about because I told you that, sort of. And this is, I put, so it took me 7 months and I probably close to 1,000 hours, That's why I say you really have to be interested. This is what it costs to do this. And the only cost that's important is the very first one. It's called Microsoft Publisher. You have to get that license. And it costs $150 for that license. But the rest of these supplies, printing, I had Instaprints bind it and print it. And that was pretty expensive. But I mean, if you're going to give your kids a present and your grandkids a present, each one of those books that I showed you costs about $50. But I mean, that's not too bad. I did buy a new laptop, and I used it only for this. Getting organized is this is taken right in my office, and it's a bookshelf that has, you can see there's drawers of stuff, there's full files of stuff, there's this stuff up here. All of that was stuff I've accumulated for 40, 50 years. Here again, I have a bunch of these maps. Here again, here's a map of McQueen in another way to organize things. This is more of the stuff that's in the book.
He's got a lot of stuff.
In fact, we have toys now because we have grandkids. This is something that was hanging in the Holy Savior Church, by the way. But we decided we need to muck out the basement. And she says, how much of this that I'm pointing at are you getting rid of it? Getting rid of it. And I said, none. And it's still there. So this is what my office looks like. I have a desktop and printer, just to show you. The picture of McQueen sits right up there, and most days I sort of lean back and think about walking down certain streets, but nothing. Here's the laptop, it's on right by there. So I told you what the book looks like, 300 pages, 500 pictures and documents. And I'm a morning person, so a lot of times I work at this from 4 to 6 or 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't sleep very much. this is the chapters again, and I kept track of, you know, how many pages there were and how many pictures there were on. There were 507 documents and pictures, 302 pages. This is Publisher. And I'm going to show you a little bit about Publisher in a minute, but those of you that have some computer background know that Microsoft has lots of products, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Publisher is just another one, but this has gained in popularity because the one thing this does better than anything else, it combines text and graphics. It's that simple. Office, I mean, Word does text. PowerPoint is for presentations, but this is really key to the whole thing, and I talk about Office a little bit. So what happens is, and I tried to illustrate here, like in the case of Margie's family, they sent me that whole chapter, you know, that whole stuff. It was all in Word. And I just would put that into Publisher, into a chapter, and it worked. The cell phone is, you know, I don't know what you think about cell phones, and they have their pluses and their minuses, but they do a wonderful, wonderful job of taking pictures and mailing them to yourself. So this is how it works, you know. Here's my, I wanted to go back. I know there's a way to go back.
Just the arrow.
Just the arrow. There we go. Thank you. Anyway, you can see there's all the materials up there in the top slide. Put it into Publisher. Take it to Instaprints in an electronic form. Instaprints prints it out. And they did a lot in terms of making it look prettier. Instaprints did. Rose and I can't remember the others. But that's the process right there. Hindsight. I put this picture up there of Joe Kasperic, who's here with us today. We appreciate this. Include the family as soon as you can, wherever you can, if you're going to do something like this. Those that are living. Have people edited. I think my grandson's wife, is it Tessa that I have 3 different birthdays for in here? You know, and that was just and you have a proof, but this picture here is one I really botched. Maybe some of you recognize. I was trying to illustrate the kids in grade school, and they all had Mrs. Anderson, and in the 3rd grade. And so I had this, and I explained that about Mrs. Anderson, and I used Publisher to point at somebody, and I had a name in there. Well, the first one, I was pointing at some kid that nobody knew, and I had Brian in there, our other son. So, and Margie caught that. Yeah, stop me now because there's a couple things that I'm going to talk about, but that's pretty much, you know, most of what I had in mind of presenting. Did anybody have I have a story about this. That's why it's up there, because that's another approach that I think you'll appreciate. But before I go to that, does anybody have any questions, or do you have Mary Lou?
What store did your dad have, and was it in McQueen?
No, it was Contrados, and it's over by the Town Pump corporate offices.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my neighborhood,
That's Willard's neighborhood.
and I used to go there when I was a little kid, walk over with my little coins. My sister traded me nickels for dimes. I remember Jim coming from McQueen in like a 48 Chevy pickup truck and delivering on the weekends for Contrados Market.
You know,
That's where I first met Jim.
you know how they used to call into the old neighborhood grocery stores and then they would deliver it later? Yeah, we were delivering, I think I was 14, not 12 or whatever. Yes,
Yeah, you mentioned the George family. Was that Bill George?
Yeah.
Big produce?
yes.
Oh, okay.
And that was a pretty large family, you can see from that picture. And My grandmother was, it's sort of a sad thing that on the George side, she was the George, her name was Armanda. And she spent the last 20 years of her life in Warm Springs. And I talk about that. And when she went in when she was 55 and she got out when she died there. But it was primarily because of the change that women went through, and she had some she couldn't speak English, and when she got in the Warm Springs, that complicated the whole thing, you know. And my dad and mother, and Joey's dad and mom used to go every Sunday to Warm Springs with a box and bring her stuff. And but that's another history that's just part of the family. Everybody has ups and downs and everything in that way. Mary Lou?
Why was the store Contrados if it was your dad's?
My Aunt Sarah was my dad's oldest sister, and she was married to a guy named John Contrado.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And he was a good businessman, you know. Once me and another guy named Donnie Anderson, Willard would know who I'm talking about, were delivering groceries. We decided to take this shortcut. Well, we got stuck in this field and we didn't know what to do, and I don't know how, if he'd had a gun, he'd have shot the both of us right there. Delivering groceries. How's our time? Are we doing okay,
About
Kim?
10 or 15 minutes, yeah.
Because I have two more things. I can talk about this now, which is sort of another way to do a family history. And then I want to show you how easy Microsoft Publisher is to use, using the picture that they just took of you. I'm going to pull that into a file and draw some arrows pointing at people.
Do you want to do that first, and then we
Whatever,
can circle
sure.
back to this? Okay.
Sure.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to put all of this together?
Oh, yeah. About 7 months.
Oh, okay.
And I calculate about 1,000 hours, not
Okay.
quite. But,
How many years did you collect all of the?
oh, I was trying to think that today, and I think I got this in the 80s, this picture. So 40, 45.
Yeah.
We've been in our current house 47 years. And so I would say 40 plus years that I've accumulated this stuff. And I have a bunch of other stuff. People who know me know that I like history. And so, 40 plus years, I guess. So, and that was that's why I did it. Because, our boys are good boys. And the grandsons are good, and nieces and nephews are all good. But my intent is to put all of the source documents, which I've accumulated, into the archives as a collection.
Nice.
And then someday, 100 years from now, somebody will be going through this book, and they'll say, well, I want to see this birth certificate.
Yeah.
Well, here it's safe. I'm not sure what would happen if and I intend to do that pretty soon, because it's just, maybe that'll clean out that one room, wouldn't it?
She's like, yeah, we'll do it this weekend, right?
Jim, the one thing I question on this is, when you take pictures using your cell phone,
Yeah,
your book, they are really, really good. The pictures are.
and you have to,
And my question to you is how, do you think it's better than doing Xerox copies or some other method of doing it?
when you take a picture, like, let's just see that little Famiglia there?
Yeah.
I should have cropped out the rest of it, but I wanted to show the spiral part of it.
Okay.
So when I take the picture, and I showed you the picture of the desktop and the laptop, I would mail it to the desktop, and I would then massage it using Microsoft what is it, the Microsoft product that you do that with?
Oh, Photoshop.
Photoshop. Yeah, and you can crop and you can clean it up, and you can do things like that with it. So it wasn't a direct shot from the cell phone into the Microsoft Publisher. The reason I went to the desktop is that's where I would clean it up and all that.
But you think that was a better method than trying to copy it, like newspaper articles here,
Yeah.
as an example. I've tried to copy some of them, and they're difficult because
Yeah.
of darkness and lightness of the material.
Yeah, it's easier to maybe scan them as a JPEG,
Okay,
and then you can use Photoshop or any sort of product like that to kind of adjust the levels, make it brighter, make it darker, whatever you want to do. You can even do that a lot on your phone now.
right.
Yeah, I think the new
So-
phones allow you to do a lot of editing
Yeah.
of the pictures and that.
Yeah, I usually edit on my phone before I
We-
send it to work sometimes.
Maybe there's a better,
Yeah.
I don't know of a better way though of taking pictures which become a JPEG file, like you said, and bringing it into a document. But you might in between have different options there. Some people use, what's that, Dropbox?
Mm-hmm.
My granddaughter uses Dropbox all the time, and that eliminates going from the cell phone, what does it eliminate?
Well,
to the desktop, then to the.
Yeah. Well, she can send it to you from somewhere else. You can just plop it in Dropbox and you can pick it up
Yeah,
in
she's-
Dropbox. It's, yeah,
She
digital
does-
UPS.
Yeah, and the Dropbox concept is starting to get popular, but Publisher, like I say, for $150 is so worth its money.
Good.
Yeah,
Do you want to get the,
okay.
should we do our little magic trick?
Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit about, are we okay? I mean, if anybody has to leave, I won't, I'm going to have you bring up that one.
Okay.
What I'm going to do now, or Kim's going to do it, because the picture that they took, okay, they put, Lindsay put it on a flash drive. So I'm going to bring that picture into a Microsoft Publisher slide. And then look out for arrows, because I love arrows. Most of you, especially the men, know who John Madden is, and they always talk about John Madden diagrams. I love John. Okay, so this is a little
Yeah, this is your program.
this is it, and
I am just going to go,
so there's the flash drive,
there's the drive.
there's the photo, right?
There's the photo, yep.
And did you insert it already?
No, I just opened it up.
Okay, it'd be better if you can see here, you
I'm
guys
just
are.
showing them. I'm just showing them.
Yeah, she's showing you what's on the flash drive.
You know,
Okay, so,
we took this today. This was not
right,
prearranged, so, yeah.
okay, now I can bring it into that third one, right?
You can put it wherever you want.
Well, should I
Okay.
drag it over or bring
Do you
it
want
in
me to
with
go over
insert?
here?
Drag it over.
Just drag it over.
Just drag it over. Well, now I lost it.
Well, you can go to insert, she'll go up to insert up there.
Right here. Okay, let's do it that way.
That's the way I do it. See,
Insert.
this is a Microsoft standard menu. Home, file, see insert up there? So she's gonna insert, press on insert.
So I pressed on insert.
And she's in this third slide now. You can see it says audience there. And then she can go to pictures, insert pictures. You can insert pictures, text, and then she'll go down to the flash drive and she'll bring that picture. There it is. And now she'll just move it over to there. And she can make it bigger. You see what she's doing? So now we just brought that picture.
Or I could even make it really small.
Make it bigger.
There. I'm just showing how
Don't be so,
easy it is.
yeah, we want it huge. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so now it's inserted, and so now let's start using it. Where's the arrows? I can't remember. There they are.
Arrows. Where are arrows? Insert again?
Insert.
Shapes.
Well, do a text box and put Joe McBride's name down.
Right here?
Over there, yeah.
Right here?
So she's gonna type Joe's name in.
Oh,
You only
God,
got for an
pressure,
arrow.
everybody watching me. Okay, it's not very large.
Okay,
All
and
right,
then close it.
and make it smaller. and
Okay, then
close
go
it.
get an arrow and point the text at Joe.
Okay, where's the arrow?
Insert shape.
Oh, insert? I've never used Publisher before, so I think I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, insert, what was, no, I'm trying to remember where the arrows are.
Shapes.
Shapes,
Oh, insert shapes?
yeah. And there's the arrow, see the
Right
one
there?
arrow? Yeah, and then go down to Joe
Oh,
McBride.
here's recently used, right there.
Why do you always complicate things?
I don't. I'm just pointing out that you
There,
used
you
it.
see where she brought it down to? You see a sort of a bullseye? Now she's bringing it up there. Oh, when Margie and I work on a computer together, we usually call a lawyer before we start. She does things I've never seen before. So anyway, you can see now, we could go through and bring a picture in and start doing a bunch, put text in it, pointing at it. It's not that hard to do if you have some familiarity with Microsoft products. And, you know, I would be more than helped if, you know, if somebody decides they want to do this and they have trouble, you can call the archives and I'd be more than happy to help people. I spent quite a bit of time with Margie's relatives in, where do they live?
Wisconsin, Green Bay.
Green Bay, Wisconsin, and you're not talking to anybody right now because of Aaron Rodgers. But the point I was trying to make here is, it looks like we did a lot of stuff, you know, with pictures and graphic stuff and all that. But when it comes right down to it, getting 45 years of stuff organized took a lot more time than putting it on a computer.
And dropping in a picture and using those arrows.
Yeah, I love the arrows.
I said, this is easier. They have all of these functions in Photoshop, but this is easier.
Yeah, that's why Publisher's gotten so popular. Have you used it? You haven't used that before, have you, Joe?
I've never used it.
You can see though, it's very similar to most
It's
of
not
the.
on your Christmas list.
It's on my-
We're all talking about it. It's all gonna show up on our social media.
And
now.
you can do some really fancy things with, you know how I have Michelotti's turned and colored and everything? You can make it look really fancy if you're creative. Okay, that was that one thing. So now I can tell my story, right?
Now you can tell your
go to the
story.
next slide.
Oh, I can. Look at that.
Okay. So I'm going to end with this, unless somebody has any questions about Publisher. And the way you buy Publisher, you just go online into Microsoft and you have to buy the license. It's for a year. You know.
Are you commissioned, Jim?
No. I should be a salesman for them, huh?
Uh-huh.
So this is another way, if I can just finish up with this, and
There you go.
this happened to me recently, and some of you may know this, but this is another person's way of doing a family history. And it's all mostly text. And the way it works is, and I have to tell a story here, this is the guy that wrote this book. And we grew up together. And this is his brother. This is Joe and Anthony Sudi. He's the one who wrote this book, and he starts out with this event, and he ends up with this event. And in the meantime, he goes through growing up in McQueen, and he has all kinds of names in here. His mother, and this is his dad, Tony, right here. And their mother was a Butte-Silver, the two boys, his wife. Okay? You can see this guy's just a hard-working guy. This gas station was in East Butte. For those of you that are familiar with Butte before the pit came and everything, it was right on the highway going up to Helena. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the gas station that the dad ran 24/7, and you'd pull in there, you'd get your And Willard will know this stuff for sure because he's goes way back with him. But anyway, he would wash your windows, check your tires, and pump gas. And he never, and you could see the guy's just a hard worker. Well, he says, one day I'm going fishing, and you two boys can man the station. And they had been there quite a bit. And this is the event I'm talking about. No use crying over spilt milk. That's the title that we're going to concentrate on. So, two boys are in there pumping gas and washing windows. And the father said, whatever you do, don't change anybody's oil. Because back in those days, you had to put the car up on a hoist and get underneath it and change the oil. I don't know, most of you know that probably. A guy named Red Vanina, who is from El Park. He's from the Vaninas that, with the milk, that pulls his milk truck in and he wants his oil changed. And these guys says, no, we can't do it. My dad said, no way. And like I say, you have to read the way they describe this in here. But anyway, he says, we're not supposed to do it. And Red Vanina says, you've done this before. Just put the damn truck up on the hoist and change the oil. Well, you can imagine what happened. Joe puts it up on the hoist, it falls off. Wipes out a wall between the hoist part and the station. Milk and oil everywhere. And I remember I went down there because there was such a commotion. Everybody went down to see what was going on. So they immediately, Joe calls his uncle, who is Louis Sudi, who runs Sudi Oil, and his uncle comes right away. They call the insurance agent comes right away. They call two wreckers, the fire engine comes, and it's just chaos. Well, you can imagine what this looked like. I think I've described it to the point that it is not a pleasant sight. And they get things cleaned up. And so they go home, and it's about 6, 7 o'clock, and the father shows up from fishing, and he is irate. And they thought he was mad because of what happened. He's irate because the fishing was terrible. He got eaten alive by mosquitoes. They got stuck, and he's just screaming, never again will I go fishing. And he said, and he explains why. Then he says to these guys, and how did your day go at the station? And this guy is, do you know the Sudi? Linda does for sure. You have to know, especially this guy. He's very musical. He played for the Bobcats. He told this to our granddaughter one morning when we were having coffee, and that's all she talked about for weeks. I shouldn't even bring this part of it up, huh, Margie? Well, I won't even mention names. We're not going to go that way. We were talking about some family who had a really good-looking daughter. And he said, well, that's the one. But anyway, but this book, like I say, you could read it in a couple of hours. And it mentions lots of families in McQueen. And that's another way to approach what I did. You know, and this guy wrote it when he was getting a knee replaced, and it got infected, and it went pretty bad, and he needed something to do, so he wrote this book.
So Jim,
yeah.
Finish the story. Who said it?
Who what?
Who said that when the boys told him?
This guy made up the title.
But when the boys told their dad what happened, did someone?
The dad was good. He said, first thing he said, did anybody get hurt?
Oh.
But after about 10 questions, he probably beat the hell out of them. Like I told you not to change the oil. But those of you that know Red Vanina, he's not an easy guy to negotiate. So, and I put this, before I was scheduled to do this, I had dinner with both of these guys, in fact, and they were telling me about the book. I knew the story, but I said, send me the book, because I want to use it in my presentation, you know. So it's not something you can buy. He just did it for the family. And there's one here that you can check out. He
Well,
sent me
not
here.
yet. We haven't, it hasn't been processed or come across my desk yet.
Oh, okay.
We need a copy.
It's here. I
Huh?
brought it in the other day.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, and if you were, I have one copy if somebody wants to borrow it. Every time I give a book away, though, I never see it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's all. That's all I have. I appreciate you guys putting up with all the stories and everything else.